Legends, welcome back to another episode of the Ruck Infringement Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joey, and this week's special guest is none other than Jordan Rankin. Jordan, how are you? How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Thanks for having me on the podcast, mate. Really appreciate it.
Mate, it is our pleasure. Now, for those that may not know you, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and who you played for in the NRL and Super League.
Yeah, sure. Jordan Rankin, born and raised on the Gold Coast, professional rugby league player for 16 seasons across the NRL and Super League. Made my debut with the Gold Coast Titans, played for the West Tigers as well in the NRL and also with Parramatta, and was lucky enough to then venture over to Super League throughout those years and play for Hull FC. A brief stint with Huddersfield, and then my last stint there was with Castleford Tigers, where did some pretty cool things there. So that's pretty much in a nutshell my playing career, mate. And now moved into the coaching world, so it's gone full circle, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, lovely. Now we're going to talk about your debut game. Of course, people probably don't remember, but you were one of the youngest, if not the youngest, NRL player to debut. Is that correct?
Yeah. So yeah. The fun little fact with that, I was 16 years old when I played my first NRL game, and
yeah, wow.
I think I'm the youngest in third youngest in history of rugby league, and the young NRL era, which is obviously when ARL become the NRL, and that's pretty much where it sits.
Yeah. So tell us about your debut game for the Titans. You would have been nervous, mate, being 16.
Mate, surprisingly, I wasn't too bad, to be honest. I think, I was a 16-year-old kid that I was in year 11 at school, and when you're 16 years old, you feel like you're a bit bulletproof. So mate, every player sort of goes through it. They just had that year where everything just clicks and everything was going really well for me. So I was fortunate enough to play in the Gold Coast Titans SG ball team as a 16-year-old. I captained that team, and then sort of progressed through, played Queensland schoolboys, Australian schoolboys, and played under 20s at that point with the Titans at 16. And we'd gone on a 8 or 9 game winning streak when I came into the team. So I had some really good players around me, and were able to do some really good things on the field. And it sort of, one thing led to another, and I was able to find myself playing first grade as a 16-year-old on a Monday night against Newcastle. So the first grade team wasn't going too well. We had a couple of guys that were injured, and the opportunity just arose that they sort of wanted to give a really young kid a crack, and fortunately enough, it was me. So it was an experience, mate, that I'll never forget. One that I'm very proud of, and I learned a lot of lessons from my time being, a young first grader at that age, still at school and transitioning all the way through, mate. So there's plenty of learnings there that I took throughout my career.
Mate, you didn't have to go to school the next day, did you?
Funnily enough, mate, it was a Monday night game, so I actually went to school the day I played.
Wow.
And then the next day we had there was a touch tournament on that I was meant to be playing in that obviously I didn't play, but I did do recovery that morning with the first grade, and I actually did go to the touch tournament to watch. So I didn't per se, but I was with school to represent the school, but just not play. So sort of, the first grade, the day that I played first grade, I went to school till about 11 o'clock, and my rugby league coach there, Rod Patterson, if anyone follows school footy or knows anything about school footy, he's one of the all-time great footy coaches that's done a lot through the Gold Coast Northern Rivers region. Anyone that's gone on to play first grade, he's a bit like the Wayne Bennett of schoolboy rugby league. So he was my coach, and he sort of pulled me aside at about 11 o'clock in the morning and said, "Mate, you can't be here. You got to go home and rest up game tonight." So he drove me home, and that was it. So
jeez, your mates would have been jealous, mate. They would have been, "Where's Jordan going? How good?"
Yeah, I know, mate. I know. I was quite lucky, mate. Not many kids get driven home by one of the rugby league coaches to go home and being told to rest up. It's usually for other things. So it was good, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you played for a few clubs. Did you have a funniest teammate that you played alongside?
Oh, mate, I feel like every club's got a bit of a larrikin or a couple of guys that the light of the team. So Gold Coast, you had guys like Greg Bird. He was even early in his career there. He got up to a bit of trouble there at Bucks there. But in general, mate, Birdie was a fantastic footy player, competitor. But mate, he loved a good time, and he was a funny bloke. Loved a couple of practical jokes on some of the boys. So that was always fun. Then probably all the English guys overseas, mate. I'm sure like not many of the listeners would know too many of them from back in the day. Played with like Gareth Ellis, who was a good time.
Yeah.
He was but he was great, mate. And then more recently at Parramatta, you had guys like Blake Ferguson and Gutho and Bryce Cartwright, Mitch Moses. Those guys are always a good time to be around. There's always plenty of jokes going on around there, mate. So had a lot of good time with those boys.
Yeah, no, that's great, mate. Now, can you share some stories about some of the great characters of the game that you've played with?
Yeah, great characters. The game, as I said, like for me, I've been lucky enough to transition through 16 years. So the characters of the game weren't that back when I first started playing. So it was all pretty much a carbon copy. Everyone was pretty much the same. They were told the same, say the same things and do the same things when it comes to the media. Everyone had media training stuff, and I don't think that really happens much anymore, which is good. You get to see the characters of the game and what they're really about and what their real personalities are. But I remember one guy that stands out the most, and he was probably the one that sort of led the way in terms of like just a different character that just beat to his own drum, was Kevin Gordon, the old ex winger that played Titans. He was a DJ rapper, had these weird songs that he would come out with and edit and play them on in the gym when we'd be training, and just all the weird stuff. Like he would, and even not too far gone. There'd be times where you'd be on the Gold Coast and you're walking down the street and you just see this guy in roller skates with tights on, roller skating down the Burleigh headland there, and you're like, who's this bloke? And it's Kevin Gordon, and he was only doing that probably years ago. So anyway, he stuck to his guns from day one and never changed who he was. He was always a bit of an out there character, but I can understand now, the characters of the game. If he had been this time coming through, like he'd be, mate, everyone would love him. So he's probably the one that's.
Yeah, I love that, mate. Love that. Now, the next question we got is, which game in your career stands out in your mind and why?
Obviously the debut. I think everyone sort of says that. I think really big game for myself, my family, my friends. Obviously the occasion itself and what it meant was one that would stand out the most. But mate, probably atmosphere wise, like I played in some pretty big games over in England. I played in some Challenge Cup finals and played in some semi-finals there as well. You're playing in front of crowds of 40, 50,000 in some capacity there. And there was, they had this thing called the Magic Weekend. Obviously, we've got it now. We've adopted it now in the NRL, but they played at some amazing stadiums. Like we're talking about Man City, Etihad Stadium. We're talking about Liverpool at Anfield there. So to play in front of packed house at Anfield, playing for Castleford against at the time that we played St Helens, who were the best team in the competition. It's an experience that I'll never forget, and to be able to say that I stepped on the foot at Anfield and played a game there, they're experiences that I'll never forget. So.
Yeah, for sure. I think the atmosphere is definitely what makes a game. When you watch games like Origin, it's all about the atmosphere, I think, as well. So, mate, the next question we got, and it stems a bit more when you were younger, but when you were younger, how did you deal with the backlash from fans at games or online? I know social media probably wasn't as prevalent in 2007 as it is now, but how did you deal with that?
Mate, it's just one of those things that you, as you said, like you didn't really have it back then. So it was but anything in the papers really, and even then it wasn't too bad. Facebook started to come in a couple of years after that. So like 2009, 10, 11, that was where you first got your comments from people online. And mate, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie. Like as a kid coming through and you hear and see things from what people are saying, your family get roped into it as well in terms of they read it. But it's just one of those things, mate. It's part and parcel with the career and the choice to play in a professional sport that has so much exposure to people having their own opinions. As we know, everyone's got their own opinion and they can say what they want, and that's fine. But when there's a line to be crossed, and Sometimes it's hard to bear when the line is crossed, when your family get brought into different things and things like that. So I'm all for taking copping criticism as a player, because at the end of the day, that's what we're paid to do, and sometimes it doesn't go our way, and that's fine. But there's a line that doesn't be crossed, and when your family get involved that have nothing to do with the way you play or anything like that, I think it can be hard to take. But at the end of the day, mate, it's one of those things that you got to get some thick skin, and you got to be able to deal with it. And the only opinions that matter are the ones that from your family, your playing group, as in your teammates and your coaching staff. They're the ones that really matter the most. So the sooner that players can either stay off social media and not listen to it or see it, the better they'll be, mate.
Yeah, no, mate. Absolutely agree with that. Now, did you have a footy nickname?
Not really, mate. To be fair, like they boys just call me Ranko or or things like that, Jordo. So little ones like that, mate. But nothing too out of the blue.
Yeah, nice. The next one we got is: did you have a rugby league idol that you looked up to?
Oh, mate, I did. To be fair, like I think I was a Broncos supporter as a kid. Darren Lockyer, guys like that. Yeah. Steve Renouf as a player, he was fantastic. I love watching him play. Alfie Langer.
Oh yeah,
guys like mate, they were just fantastic little players and played way above their weight and just classy. I just love watching them play. Who else? Probably in the more modern times, coming through the ranks of the Titans, Scotty Prince, Preston Campbell. Those guys I really looked up to, just because they obviously played similar positions to me, and they just had that bit of flair and a bit of class about them that I just love watching them play. So I wouldn't say I went out there and tried to emulate them or be like them, but they're definitely players that I what they could do on the field and how they run a team, and to be able to play alongside those guys throughout the first 3, 4, 5 years of my career was something I just never thought I'd be able to do. So to be able to do it is something I'm quite proud of as well.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Now, you've recently retired. Are you still involved in the game after retirement?
Yeah, mate. I'm lucky enough that when I came back from England and signed with Parramatta, I sort of fell into the coaching world with pathways programs there for the last probably 2 or 3 years. So I was still a professional player and playing full time, but also coaching on the side. So I helped out with our Harold Matts and SG ball teams, which is our under 17s and under 19s. I coached the SG ball team last year, and we were lucky enough to win a premiership there. So did that, and I had a brief stint as captain coach of the New South Wales Cup team, so our reserve grade team back in 2022. So I coached the season doing that, which was that was my eye opener to coaching in my first first job as a coach and a player in the same breath, mate. So that was very interesting. But I got to work alongside all the coaching staff in the first grade system. So Brad Arthur took me under his wing, and that was probably where I decided that I wanted to go into coaching. And under his guidance, he sort of said to me that I'd be pretty good at it if I gave it a crack and got some experience. So that's pretty much where I've been ever since, mate. I've gone back, and now I'm the under 21, so our Jersey Flag head coach, and also do some stuff with the first grade squad as well with underneath the coaching staff there. So all about gaining experience, mate, and being the best version I can be for my players, and upskilling myself as best I can underneath Brad and the coaching staff there, and Trent Barrett, guys like that, to improve my way I coach, my philosophies, and what works for me as a coach, and hopefully that one day brings me into the fold of being an NRL coach one day.
Yeah, lovely, mate. That's awesome. Look, I want you to take us through the grueling schedule of being a player. Is it hard when you guys break up for your Christmas break in the preseason, and then you got to come back and train? Take us through that. Is it difficult to do?
Yeah, mate. Preseason's not for the faint-hearted. It's one of those where, as a player, you just got to bite down the mouth guard, as we like to say, and you just got to grit your teeth and get through it. So it's that's where all the hard work's done, mate. That's where you set yourself up for your season, and sometimes it's you have really good preseason. Sometimes you don't have the best ones in terms of injuries and stuff like that. But all in all, it's just to get the body prepared for what's to come in the long season ahead in the NRL. So yeah, now that I'm retired, I look back and say that I've done 16 preseasons is pretty crazy. I've seen them all from all different shapes and sizes, what you do on the field, off the field, everything like that. But I know that my time as a player was always really hard. As in the pre-seasons, you train in no less than 5 days a week, sometimes
Yeah,
six,
wow.
mornings through till late afternoon. So anyone that thinks that a rugby league play, comes in at 9 and is finished by 12, it doesn't happen. It's sometimes for me when I was at Parramatta, it was a get in by 6:30 and not leave until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon some days.
Wow.
So long days, and you're doing them, Monday to Friday most days, like an all working person. So they're not easy. And then obviously coming back after that Christmas break, you can see the light at the tunnel after the Christmas break though, because the footy's not too far away, and a lot of your training around games and simulated games, 13 on 13 sort of opposed sessions and stuff like that. So you're sort of getting that bit of a taste of the footy and the competitiveness that comes into that. But anything before Christmas, it's the real slog where you're doing all the long running and things like that. So it's good fun, mate. It's not for everyone, but it's good fun.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't do it. So look, you're a stronger man than me. Now, it's 2024. We've got about 7-8 weeks until the season starts. Can you give us an early prediction for 2024? Maybe a team that finished in the bottom 8 last year that will improve this year.
Oh, mate, if I'm being a bit biased, I'd probably have to say Parra, to be fair. Like, I think, always missed out on the semis last year. They had a tough first 5-6 weeks. But finished the season really well in terms of, they knocked off Penrith and a few other big teams in those, like that last month of footy there. So if I'm being biased, I'd have to say the Parra boys are in for a big season. But if I'm going on the other end of that, I'd have to go with a bit of a smoky, mate. I'd probably have to go with. I'm gonna say the Gold Coast.
Nice.
I just feel like with Des there, who's gonna give him a bit of a. They all had some really good players around that gave them the opportunity to always be in games. So I'm really interested how they're going to go a bit of a harder edge coach. Obviously, Kieran Ford made some pretty good signings on the back of him as well. So I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to go.
Yeah, for sure. If Jaden Campbell has a full season at fullback as well, could be a big year for the Titans. He is a superstar. Well, mate, that is all we have time for on this episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, and LinkedIn as well. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you listen under the Ruck Infringement Podcast of course. You can check out all our other interviews and this one currently while you're listening as well. So we want to thank you so much for tuning in. Check out leaguelids.com. Get yourself a nice retro corduroy rugby league hat as well. You can use the code RUCK10 there and get 10% off. All right, that's Jordan. I'm Joey. Be good.